daily smoking amongst 15 and 16-year-old adolescents was every 1 in 4, almost 25% in '98. Today it's 3%. And those who had tried hashish were 17%. And now that's also 3. And this is all population 15 and 16-year-old adolescents in Iceland. So I have agreed with Janina to say how this was achieved in 20 minutes. so obviously I have to cut some corners and you must excuse me if I forget something, and I trust you will ask afterwards. Now, we often get this question, how has this been achieved? Of course, there has been a similar trend all over Scandinavia, we know that. But I just talk from our point of view. And from these 3 points, what we have done, we have used research, and I come from that field, so I'd like to talk a little bit about that. We've used research for all policy and practice for the past, 14, 15, 16 years. And prevention work has focused on just few simple factors, not too complicated, in the whole society. And what we have managed is to keep, a constant dialogue between the stakeholders in prevention in our little country. Some say these results are because the country is so small, just like a city. But there are also small cities in Europe where the results are not the same. Some say it's an island, and that just makes our border control extremely difficult, so it's not because of that. So I'll try to explain. Now, I told you, I'm from the research community, and we've been studying youth ever since 1992 in Iceland, very systematically. And what we know today is a lot of things about youth from the age of 10 to 20. That's our specialty. In my longer version of this, I go through the different research that we do, but to make it simple, these are the indicators that we monitor every year amongst youth in Iceland, and these are all population research. It's not samples, it's not 30 from this school, 50 from that. It's everybody who's in school at the day of implementation, so we're getting 85–90% response rates. So we know quite a lot about the lives and lifestyles of our young people. Now we like to divide the research in 2 different categories, and one is this. It's the scientific part, where we go into depth of the data. We publish papers, around 10 per year for the past few years, and this we do in good time. We take 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years to present each and every paper, but they come out regularly. So basically these papers, the science part, they form the platform for the practice. The other part, which is none lesser important, is the practical role of research. And I'd like to dwell a little bit on this. As I told you, we do population data, no samples. And what we do with this population data, it's in every school that we collect data. Within 3 to 4 months of each data collection, we issue a practical report to all the schools, all the municipalities, all the ministries about the situation in various fields of the community. So everybody gets their local information about the status and development of how things are going. Now, we do this every year. We monitor not always the same factors every year, but we monitor every year. We say monitoring something every 2, 3, 4 years and giving out information, practical information to those who work in prevention, it's just not often enough. It has to be at least once a year, because nobody listens to 3, 4-year-old information, not in our society today at least. And we always say, I heard here before, children, they have a right, and they have the right to be asked how they feel, what they want, and we should always listen to that. Now, as I said, it was a government decision in 1992 in our country to start collecting data amongst young people. It started with 15 to 16-year-old, now it's 10 to 20. And the aim, and this is from the legal document, it was the aim to start this research was to see if and how information collected could benefit policymaking and decisions for actions in youth matters in general. So this was done in 92. And we had several data collections until 98. In 98, we could see from the data that there was a constant upward trend in smoking, in alcohol use, getting drunk, using cannabis, etc. So the methods that were being used, well, they seemed not to be working. And at this point of time, after 6-7 years of research, we could already see certain behavior in the lives of adolescents and how it was connected towards or against substance abuse. And here we were actually asked if we could establish the risk and protective factors. You of course know this, I know. I can see your heads nodding. And still I will go over it briefly. What we established were these 4 factors. If the connection with the family was good, and your children were having relations with good kids, they were feeling well in general, inside and outside of school, and they were exercising in organized work. All this was beneficial. And we got into depth in each and every category here. The family factors, as I say, the politicians asked us what could it be that is beneficial. So we said, if you spend a lot of time with your parents, that is quantity time, not necessarily quality time, if you have support and your parents, they monitor your actions, there is good control. If your parents know how to deal with their peer group, if your child is feeling well inside and outside of school, and practicing extracurricular activities in organized work, not unorganized, but organized. If all this is good, then the chances of your child starting to smoke drink are very limited. On the other hand, if they're all broken, there's a big chance. So, based on these 4 circles in 1998, this program or initiative called Drug-Free Iceland was started. Everybody laughed at the name. It was stupid. We cannot have Iceland drug-free. We heard this here in the previous session, but that was okay. But there were a lot of actions that came out of this, and Drug-Free Iceland was completely built on the research findings. The politicians didn't try to be very clever for once themselves. They just listened to the researchers. And this was a nationwide task to decrease substance abuse. And the aim was this: to change the behavior of youth, not only their attitudes, and to change the environment of children. So the environment would be in such a way that there would be a lesser risk of substance abuse. So it sounds easy. The characteristics of this program were these. It was supposed to be a task without a time frame, which was new. It was not supposed to be 4 years, and then we get our money back. But it was, let's start something and see how it goes and see where it takes us. It was supposed to be based on annual cross-sectional research, which we were really happy to hear. And the aim was to find and react to risk and protective factors. It's supposed to be a tool for policymakers and field workers, of course. It was supposed to encourage a dialogue between research, policy and practice. And first and foremost, it was a primary prevention model. And that has been the focus in Iceland. Of course, we have all kinds of prevention. We have secondary and tertiary, of course, but what this is about is primary, and why we could show Parliament, politicians, that, for example, this is a cohort born in 1984. I'm not sure if you see this very well, but I'll tell you what it says. And this is a cohort born in 1991, 84-91. And if we just look at the blue line, we could see that these are 13-year-old kids that had tried alcohol. 20% of this cohort had tried that when they were 13-year-old. 2 years after, 57% had tried alcohol. If we looked at the 1991 cohort, 10% had tried alcohol when they were 13, 41% when they were 15. So about 60% less than the earlier cohort. So there was an indication that early prevention was good. And yes, what else did we tell the policymakers? We went into depth with the data. And we showed them this. And this is all 1997, 1998. We showed them that, for example, if we just look at, this is girls here, and time spent with parents, just an indicator of that. 42% of girls who said that they almost never spent time with their parents had become drunk for the past 30 days. 10% of those who said that they almost always and very often spent time with their parents had become drunk. So especially for girls, this is very clear. The peer group, now just looking at one slide at a time, one for each circle that I showed you before. This is the peer group effect, and here you can see that 4% of girls who say that none or very few of their friends had become drunk for the past 30 days had become drunk themselves for the past 30 days. 67% of those who said that almost all of their friends had become drunk themselves. Sports, look at extracurricular activities. I'm simplifying a lot here, it's okay. But those who said that they practiced sports 4 times per week or more often, 3.5% of them, these girls had become drunk. Of those who said that they almost never practiced sports, 25%. So there was a lot of indications that we could give out. And 2 slides now about the main actions that the government, the politicians, they had this information. What did they do? It was decided to base all this work for a few years on research. Fine. Strengthen the parents' organizations and cooperation between parents. The parental factor, the first circle. Support organized extracurricular activities and sports and active NGOs, not the inactive ones. There were special programs to support children who were already at some risk. A lot of groups against drugs, anti-smoking campaigns. Strengthen the social capital, teaching parents about the importance of parental social capital in neighborhoods, etc. And on the national level, the legal age of adulthood was raised from 16 to 18 in 97 or 8. I think you have this also in Sweden, 18. This is something that is still going on, but and we've been laughed at. We could see that children who spent less late hours outside of the home, they were there was a less chance that they would start smoking, drinking, etc. So there's a law in Iceland since 1998 also, saying if you're 10-year-old, you can stay outside until 8 o'clock in the winter time, 10 o'clock in the summertime. If you're 12-year-old, you can stay out, this and that. So we have this youth curfew, and everybody knows this, that children should be at home, before certain hours in the evening. You have the same age limits to buy alcohol and tobacco. This was raised. Very strict regulations for sellers of tobacco and alcohol. Total advertising ban of tobacco and alcohol. Restricted access, it's like in Sweden, like System Bolaget. This is something that we did only 5-6 years ago. There's a total disability ban of tobacco in my country. It's illegal to have cigarettes on display and in a shop. So actually, if you want to buy a packet of cigarettes, you have to ask, do you sell cigarettes? Because you never see any signs, or it's totally illegal to display cigarettes. It sounds strict, but I think it's working. And beer, of course. We're often asked, does the same go for beer as strong alcohol? And yes, it does. Now, the government was doing this, and the municipalities. What we needed to do as researchers, have you seen this picture? You may have, I stole it somewhere. This is the old school. This is how we used to work. Researchers just issued reports, and we simply pounded them out. We had no interest at all. I mean, we were just getting our publications. We were getting a little more pay slowly, becoming professors a little faster, and we didn't care about how actually the knowledge that we were developing was becoming of use for our people. And I see heads nod, so thank you for that. You know what I mean? So this we had to change, and we did. So we said, okay, now we will, after each and every data collection, take the findings within 3 or 4 months into every municipality in the country in a special report. And this was made possible. And I put here like the average. We call it the biggest liar. Again, heads are nothing. An average figure for a prevention worker in Gävle, an average figure of Sweden or Scandinavia doesn't do anything. You have to know how is the situation in Gävle, how is the situation in my neighborhood, my school. And this is what we did, and promised to deliver information within 3 or 4 months. And now, I mean, this is just any picture, but now all the schools can see, okay, I'm here. I want to be here or here, depending on what it is. And we also find that local information, if you have a local information in our society, how that fuels dialogue. Nobody wants to talk about average figures. You want to talk about, there are 2 schools in our municipality, or 3. And, if you have information from all 3, then the people in the municipality can start talking. Is everything okay? Shall we fix something? Is one school better than the other, etc. So, this is how we have been working for the past few years. We've actually been trying to give out indicators after each and every data collection to all the municipalities, to all the schools, well, 70% of the schools, about, this is good, this is not so good, this is fine, you may want to change something here. And the policymakers get this information, and all 3 can talk together, researchers, policymakers, and practitioners. And what is achieved? Since 1997, we were looking at time spent with parents. Then 23% of our young people, 15, 16-year-olds, said that they were often or almost always with their parents during weekdays after school. In 2012, this is 46%. So a lot of increased time spent with parents. And the parents know that this is important. The outside curfew, how long you can stay out in the evenings. In 2000, 53% reported that they had been outside after 10 o'clock in the evening 3 times or more for the past week. This year it's 29%. So these things are changing. This is the monitoring factor. My parents know where I am in the evenings. In year 2000, 52% of our youth said this. Now in 2012, 71%. And they organized sports. In the year 2000, 23% of the 9th graders in our country said that they practiced sports 4 times a week or more, organized sport. This is the whole country. Now in 2012, this is 42%. So all these factors have changed over time, and we believe that they have something to do with this development. This was my first presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jón. So, as far as I captured the essence of your presentation, this is the lifelong project that you are running in Iceland.
Yes.
And one of the key points in this project is to involve all the key stakeholders and to have constant dialogue with policymakers. What I'm most impressed about is how could you come across and deliver the results of your research to the politicians and collaborate with them in such a successful way?
For one reason or the other, they asked for it. It all, well, I don't know how long back I should take this, but it was at an ICAT meeting. I don't remember where, I wasn't there, in 1996 or 7, that some of you may know this, may have been there. It was decided to find out if it was possible to do something different in Iceland. Obviously the situation was getting worse and worse, and Iceland is small, Iceland has a lot of research. Can it be used? And so it was initiated at this meeting by the city of Reykjavik. The city of Reykjavik took it to the parliament, and we had the right ministers at that time who said, okay, why not? So that's how it started.
I should probably remind that ICAT is one organization that initiated the program due to the fact that we collaborate with the cities across Europe. So now we have approximately 15 European cities involved in this program, drug prevention program, Youth in Europe. Maybe somebody has a question to Jón regarding the policy, please.
While the microphone is being delivered, regarding Youth in Europe that Janina just mentioned, that's in the longer version.
Thank you. My name is David Jane from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much for a good presentation. I have two questions for you and a third one. Now, how did you choose the age range that you wanted to work with? Did you say 16 to 18?
Yes, well, it started by monitoring 15 and 16-year-old, and that was kind of a trend in the US, and in Scandinavia it started monitoring 15 and 16-year-old, but since then it has developed to 10 to 20.
Okay. And number two, this is a lot, as you say, it's a long-term research project. What is the minimum time that you can make some conclusion as to whether you achieve these results?
In the Youth in Europe project that started in 2006, there we say 4 years is a very short time. So if we do research in like in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012, you don't see if your work is actually making a change until after a few years. So I would be lying if I told you that I knew exactly how many years, but a minimum of 4 to 6 years.
And if a third one, I'll ask you personally.
Thank you.
My name is Nadia Vsevich, I'm from Belarus, and I've got a question for you. Do the questions you ask your 15, 16-year-old students, do they have anything to do with SPAD questionnaires?
Actually, yes, well, we used to do SPAD in my research institution until 2003. But we had done this Youth in Iceland research separately since 1992. So what we wanted to, well, SPAD is a great study, and a lot of good things have come from that, and we know it's of really huge importance. But what we wanted to do additionally, and what we could do, was we could, instead of taking random as samples, we could do the whole population, and we decided to do that and take the information from each and every school back to each and every school or municipality. So we wanted to put SPAD on steroids, if you may use that.
Excuse me, just one more question in addition. Do you generalize all the answers? The information on every school is available, or do you just put everything together?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking. We do a country report on different aspects, on well-being, on drug abuse, etc. Then we do municipal reports that are normally comparing a municipality with the total population of the country. And then thirdly, we do school reports, but the school reports are not published, but they are used as a tool for those who work in the close community of that particular school. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Eze Lucia from People Against Drug Dependence and Ignorance in Nigeria. I have two very brief questions. Do you think the success you have recorded in Iceland can be linked with the fact that Iceland is a monoethnic and detached from the rest of Europe? If you were multicultural and closer to the rest of the world, do you think you have succeeded?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. Again, before I knew my presentation would be 25 minutes, I had a 45-minute presentation, and that was in that. And many people have said, okay, you're so small, you're so homogeneous, but we are about the size population of Malta, and how is the situation in Malta? That's also an island, like us. So I don't think it's because we are so small and because we are so isolated. I think it's because something was actually done about it.
And secondly, what advice can you give to countries that are less endowed economically and who adapt it and don't have that 12-year time lag to wait to adapt the results of what you've achieved?
You're asking about if we could adapt this methodology to...
Yes. I don't have the wherewithal to have this kind of long research period and that encourage catch up.
Okay, thank you. Well, as Jannica mentioned, we are doing, and we have since 2006 been doing similar research. I'm just a number guy, you know. We just deliver the figures and the risk and protective factors, and we are now trying to establish these in 15 different cities all over Europe, and even our latest city is not in Europe. It's in Africa. It's in Guinea-Bissau. Bissau has just asked us to find out if this could work for them for a period of few years. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jón. Oh, the last question, please.
I'm from Sri Lanka. Can you give us a kind of idea about the cost of the program?
Good question. It's a low-cost project. Really. We have support now, for example, for Youth in Europe, and they're supporting us in the 15 cities in Europe doing the research part. And we have all the methodology, we have all the field procedures. It is all there. We just give it to you basically. And this support per annum is only 60,000 euros for 15 cities. But to be straight with you, the cities, they take care of their own printing cost and some administration around the data collection, but after that we deliver the reports to the city. So it's a low-cost thing. Should be.
Thank you, Jón. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Now, we've been talking about involving the key stakeholders into the prevention policies. I would like to give the floor to our second speaker, the politician, the politician of one of the most active cities in my organization, European Cities Against Drugs. A politician who represents a small city in Norway, the city of Kristiansand, the city that received ICAD Award 2010 for drug prevention initiatives and for being active in their organization. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Kjell Adolfsen, who is advisor at the Unit for Social and Preventive Services, Kristiansand commune, Norway. Please, Kjell.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Here we go. Thank you. You told them what I'm named. Thank you for inviting me. Usually I do speak back home in Norway, in Norwegian, so this is kind of tough for me doing this in your language, English. I had a mail one day in the winter, and someone said, "We know you are doing some kind of survey over in Norway. Could you please tell us a bit about it?" Yes, I tried to. It was in Swedish. It was from Sweden. So it was easy to tell about it. And then he said, it would be nice if you could say something about your survey at this convention. So now I'm here. As you can see, there are two names. It's mine, Kjell, and it's Benny. It's in Berlin now. Wish I were there. We have done this together for the last years. I started doing this back in 1992, and we did this survey every year amongst those who of the age of 14 and 15 in Kristiansand. And if you wonder what Kristiansand looks like, it's like this. Beautiful place, southern part of Norway, close to Denmark. Fishing, swimming, whatever. And doing drugs if you want to. We wondered what was going on in our city. So we decided to carry on something that we found in a shelf in 1978. Small survey of 2 pieces of paper saying how many boys and how many girls had tried alcohol, smoking, cannabis and so on. Let's do it. So we have contacted all the schools in Kristiansand. We are about 80,000 persons. That means about approximately 1,100 kids of the age of 15. And we asked the school to visit every class 1 hour, Benny and I, and talk to them, tell them about what we wanted to do, and then present this piece of paper asking them to fill in our questions, using lots of time telling them how we assure them to be anonymous and what these figures would be used for. So we went ahead, and that has been going on for years now. Now we are just doing the 15-year-olds every second year. So why? Well, I told you, we wanted to know instead of guessing. That's important. I learned that here from Iceland too. But also, when having the figures, we wanted to give the children an opportunity to look at their own choices and compare them with what the rest of the peers had done. And this is maybe the most important part. I'm not that slow after all. I haven't tried drugs. That's the same thing as all the rest are saying, it seems, nowadays. And we would like to communicate these figures to the politicians so that they can know instead of guessing or meaning or somewhat like that when they are to decide things for our community. And our police long used to say everyone is trying everything. So now, after having presented this report to the police for so many years, they are looking forward to having it and say, give us a glimpse into the life of the whole group of 15-year-olds, not only those who you come across at work. So, as you can see for yourself, we had some ideas of what we wanted to do with it, and this is what we do now. So, we want to prevent, that's what we say. So we also had some arguments on what is that to prevent and what is it, what is the problem and so on, what causes it. So we had to ask ourselves this question, what do we mean by the terms substance abuse problem? And we didn't agree at once, but after a while we kind of leveled. I think it was fruitful talking about these elementary questions. We should all do it sometimes. And what do we mean by the term substance abuse problem? What is the problem? So we talked about that too. We came up with something like this, and we had to bear this in mind when we went on with the survey. It's about economic and social obligations that you can't fulfill, and when your own use damage life for other people, to put it that way. So the next thing, if we wanted to prevent, we had to know what causes all this. So we asked ourselves about that too. So today I heard about lots of reasons for why trouble occurs. And especially, I think politics was interesting to hear about today, and so on. But all these ways of looking at why things happen is important, not only when you are doing a survey, but when you are presenting the figures afterwards. I think if you ask yourself about this, if you are most concerned about just one or two of these things, it would reflect the way you meet people with problems as well. So it was a kind of exercise in itself, defining it. So now to the survey. We do this to know and not to guess. So it's not much, but it's one drop in the ocean. You should not read all this. This is what we are asking students. So if you pick up this presentation afterwards in the report from this convention, you will find more. We ask whether they live in our city, are they living with mama or papa or both, or from one to the other, and so on. If they have tried nicotine, alcohol, cannabis, other illicit drugs, and so on. And whether they stay downtown at night or not. If they have been stealing, and whether they have been involved in violent actions of some kind, and so on. So whether their parents know what they are doing or not. Quite interesting question, I think. So from this we make different chapters. It varies from year to year because every year we present these findings to parents and to politicians, and they give us questions back. What about? So we have to fill in these answers the next time we make the report. So it's always shifting a bit. But we can look into parents, whether they allow their children to try alcohol, whether the child think that mother and father know that they are trying alcohol or nicotine and so on. And we present these figures to the parents at parents' meetings. And then we'll look into things like, what about those who smoke nicotine? What are they doing when it comes to alcohol and cannabis and so on? I'll give you some figures. As you see, just about 50% boys and girls, not shocking. Tobacco smoking. In this survey we had 1,038 15-year-olds with us, and as you see we had only 40 daily smokers, and little more than 100 sometimes, and we even have some grown-ups saying we have quit. I like that. So this is another way to put it. What is interesting with this picture is that the amount of no, I'm not smoking has never been bigger, larger than this year. That's exciting. They are in the 10th grade today, these students. And somewhat like you found in Iceland, around the turn of this millennium, things shifted a bit, started to go down. And the blues are the boys and the reds the girls. So this is the lowest finding we've ever seen. And that's okay to present to politicians and okay to present to parents, but still say now it's a good time to keep on. Hang in there. I'm a bit unsure about that name. What is snus in English? Is it smokeless tobacco? Snuff, okay. That's what I mean here. You put it inside for some reason, or I don't know why. This is what we found about this year. And if you look at it over time, you can see that just about every fourth of the boys have been doing this for a long time. And the girl, according to liberation and equality, has struggled to reach the same heights. But now they have both turned the tide, I hope. That's okay to present. Then it comes to alcohol. Had as much as one glass of beer, one glass of wine, one small drink, and so on. And these are the figures. Or to put it another way, it is very okay now for the first time to say when we visit 15-year-olds presenting these figures, more than half of your peers have not tried alcohol. The most common thing is not to have tried it when you are at the age of 15. So every time we present figures, we try to focus in a positive way. But we also show it to the parents. Wouldn't it be on time to talk a bit about alcohol at home now? My son doesn't touch it, it's the neighbors. So this is alcohol over time. The green barrels is from Norway, 15 to 16 years old, so it's a bit older people we're talking about here. But I'd like to see the figures going down here too. Just thought that Icelandics are coming from Norway sometimes. Yes, some kind. And this is how often have you been drinking? And if I find my pen up here somewhere, can I point with? No, one here. I have one here besides something else. I can do it. I found one. It's okay. If you look at this is I have not touched alcohol. It's always about this, more than 1,000 kids. I call them kids, mine are 35 now, I think. And this is I've tried once. So, quite a lot of young people. And this is 3 or 4 times a year, and here we are getting to once or twice a month, once every week, more than once a week. Not so many, but problems. How much time do you have? 5, that's good. This one, increasingly more adults know about their son and daughter's habits. That's what I can say about this one. And when it comes to cannabis, 6.4 of all students have tried cannabis now. But if you look a bit back, the figures are going up and down. It differs between somewhat 40 or 90 15-year-olds. But I see some hope in those. I hope this will level at 6 or even go down. But it's a difference between boys and girls, so the politicians and the teachers have to look into what do we teach the boys and what do we teach the girls. So they are looking into this now. But saying 6% have tried cannabis doesn't mean that everyone is smoking all the time. Half of them have tried once, and it was quite a long time ago. Less than 5 times, between 5 and 20, and more than 20 times. And this figure seems to come back every year. So this is smoking tobacco and having tried cannabis. The daily tobacco smokers, 64% of them have tried cannabis. 2 years ago, the figure was 70. Some years before that, it was more than 50. So we tell the teachers, look into nicotine use when you want to prevent cannabis, because it fits over time. Those who don't smoke, 1% have tried cannabis. And those who have quit it, well, 30% have been there. Tried cannabis, those who have tried alcohol once, 3% have tried cannabis. And those who have been drinking many times, as you can see, close to 20% have also tried cannabis. So one substance seems to cluster to another all the time. And this is alcohol once again. And what we see, those who are drinking very often seem to have tried cannabis. These are those who are drinking many times a week, so I think they have just settled for alcohol. These who drink once a week, almost half of them have tried cannabis.
Yeah.
So what we use the findings for? The media is on us, asking, can we be the first to present results in Kristiansand this time? So we try to make the newspaper and the television and radio believe they are first every time, so we get lots of publicity. And we present the results to parents and to the teachers and to the students, of course, and to the political parties, and most of all to the next students when we are collecting the next data. Consequences, nicotine preventative actions have been taken in school, so they shall do some kind of structured activities. We have something called free. And those who are using this program shows 10% less use of nicotine than those who don't use it. And so on. I think I should stop there. I just want to say it takes time and it shall go on for a long time yet.
Thank you so much, Kjell. Thank you. This has been a wonderful presentation of municipal activity in drug prevention policies, and a wonderful presentation of collaboration between the key stakeholders on the local level, parents, schools, and politicians. Now I'd like to move on to one great project that is mostly international rooted, and the project that has been known and used in 65 countries and is spoken in 31 languages. This is one of the most prominent projects probably in the world involving life skills training, life skills education. The project is called Lion's Quest, And I'd like to introduce Mike Buscemi, who is the Senior Youth Advisor and Lions Club at the Lions Club International Foundation. Mr. Buscemi was one of the principal architects of the mostly widely used and most effective life skills programs, prevention programs in the world, Lions Quest, and he has served as task force member for the U.S. State Department and Bureau for International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs, and to the Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commission, CICAD. So please, Mike, take the floor.
If you don't mind, I won't take the floor. I have a neuropathy in my leg, and it would behoove me to sit here. If everyone is comfortable with that, position yourself accordingly. You can see my lips move. I'd appreciate that. So thank you for your indulgence. And let me see if I can get my first PowerPoint up there. I think I'll take it from there. Bless you. Yanni has asked me to speak quickly. That won't be hard for me to do. I'm Italian, and I move pretty quickly with words. It's fun being Italian. I like to tell people there's a lot of reward in being Italian. People expect you to be a good singer, a good cook, and a good lover. And I don't sing that well. So that's for the record. My name, as Jenny said, is Mike Buscemi. I'm very fortunate to serve as the Senior Advisor of Lions Clubs International Foundation. A lot of you maybe know a little bit about Lions, and a lot of you may know a lot. I'm actually very pleased to say that we have a fellow Sweden lion here at Anders meeting. Am I pronouncing that right, Dean? Who actually lived in Oak Brook for 8 years and served as a headquarters staff, and he has a fellow lion with him. So if you wouldn't mind standing up, he's our Swedish contact lion. And introduce your, oh, I'm sorry, another, okay, and another. All of you stand up if you're like, well, thank you very much for being here and for all the work that you've done. So again, Lions Clubs International represents the, for those of you who don't know, I think this is important, the largest service organization in the world. I say that because it is so amazing. It represents 1.4 million members in 207 countries. That's more than the United Nations has members. And it cuts across language, economics, politics, race, creed, whatever. And it is all devoted to one simple principle: service. And what that simply means, other things don't get in the way. Paul, you'd appreciate this because it's a very simple concept, and it's about doing the best you can around one thing, and service. And that's important for this session because we have some priorities that some of you may be familiar with. Excuse me, some of you may not, but we're best known for our work in preventable blindness. And that has been a long part of our history since Helen Keller challenged us to be Knights of the Blind. What many people don't know is we're equally as committed to disaster relief, to health education, to disability, and most importantly, in my mind, to positive youth development. And that, again, is a worldwide priority. And that priority project, in addition to our Leo clubs, often centers around work with the schools. We like to take that challenge straight on. We're not about pamphlets, we're not about brochures, we're about doing the hard work with the schools and in the schools. And in our mind, positive youth development boils down to some very specific skills. It is really the other end. If some of you were in the Essex House session about 12 steps of recovery. In my mind, this is the 12 steps of asset building. It is the sign above my desk says, it is wiser to build children than repair adults. And I think a lot of the work we've been doing, or maybe haven't been doing in schools, centers around building children. And that is the hard work of preparing teachers, administrators, parents, and inevitably working with young people to help them acquire those skills that are necessary to make informed, healthier, better decisions about themselves and their life. So I say that about Lions Clubs International. I can't even see what that is. Thank you. Oh, good. That's great. Our mission is very simple here. We try not to be grandiose, but in 207 countries, we think there is a grand plan. And it is creating a world that has healthier youth. Like the other speakers, we're trying to identify what we're trying to achieve and go about it diligently and effectively. Our objective is a very simple one, to create healthier people and better citizens. We're committed to children. We believe in doing that in the school and the home and the community. And when we say that, what we mean is there are specific activities built around the school, the home, and the community. We have a network worldwide of literally, I believe now it's close to 100 trainers who have been very carefully prepared to work with the schools in their particular country to better prepare teachers. And we think that's a very huge task, but one that we've really committed ourselves to. We think that our work is effective, sustainable, and goes to scale. And we think that's important only in the fact that it's effective, and we have the infrastructure. Lions Clubs International has the ability and the structure to take programs to scale. But we don't want to do that if it's not effective, if it's not sustainable. So that's the premise that we work on. Given the fact that under over one-half, this is a concept that I think it's good for all of us, especially that work in this field, to keep in mind that over half the world's population is under the age of 24. And there's 250,000 new people brought into the world every day with a blank slate. So I think, again, the challenge is on us to put on that blank slate the kind of things we want that child to be, the kind of things we want them to adhere to, at least to respect in society. Prevention's not always sexy. I think I've heard that comment all day. It's not really the fun work because it's not great to say we've saved someone, there was an ambulance, the heart surgeon saved a person. How are we the ones to claim? The big part of our population, as mentioned previously, have made healthy decisions. They decided not to use marijuana or drugs. Who gets credit for that? Who takes credit because they didn't become addicted or go to drugs and then go back to becoming a non-drug using citizen? And I maintain, as an educator, I'm a recovering teacher myself, and in many ways I've seen that play out in the classroom and in the school building. It's important for us, I think, to take pride in that, and as these gentlemen have done, to make sure we know that's the reality. Walking our talk, it's really going to be important. And I'm hoping, how many educators are here? Actual school building, teachers, administrators, classroom, a few of note. And again, I think that's where the rubber hits the road. If we're really going to supply and provide a healthier future, then we need to be about that. I've heard a lot this morning and a lot today about demand reduction. And we've talked a lot about that at Lions Quest and headquarters in our circles. And demand reduction for us means young people who don't seek, don't use, don't buy, are not wanting, and have said no to the proposition. And what is it we do, practically speaking, to prepare kids to make that decision? It doesn't happen by osmosis. It doesn't just happen by chance. It happens because we've committed ourselves to transferring those skills, those attitudes, and those beliefs about the harmful effects effectively. And we don't do it by just asking the teacher to do it. We do it by preparing teachers. It's unfair. As a former teacher, I've always found it unfair that state mandates, federal mandates would come down to do something, and no resources were putting in to help me do it better, to help me do it effectively, which said to me they weren't really serious about what they're doing. We've learned that, at least in my journey, in 30 years, and maybe my journey out of park the car, I don't know. But in retrospect, I really don't think, honestly speaking, that we have a drug problem, a bullying problem, a truancy problem. We really have a people problem. And we can't go about designing individual programs for every single possible choice kids make. We need to develop programs that are aimed at life skills and what we're calling social and emotional learning skills. We have become very, very high on the list, and we're very proud of this. One of the recommended social and emotional learning programs of CASEL. Are some of you familiar with CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic Social and Emotional Learning? Social and emotional learning is pretty much what it said. Founded by Timothy Shriver and Daniel Goleman, who wrote Emotional Intelligence. There's also Social Intelligence now, the books of some note for some time. And it is what it says. It really is trying to factor in how we build social, emotional intelligence in young people. And you know, drug abuse for my lifetime has consisted many years of what I call pamphlet prevention. I was a part of the teacher corps that was told to scare the hell out of kids, and if that didn't work, scare them again. And then we got wise, and then we said, well, that didn't work, we'll try rational information. Rational information will lead to rational decision. That made sense. I went to a couple workshops, and we realized we don't make rational choices in our life necessarily always based on rational information. How many of you had a checklist when you picked your spouse? We don't, things that are important to us, things in our life that really speak to our self-respect are not about just rational information or the lack thereof. I have a couple of things I wanted to say, and then I'm going to get to this because I know, time is running short on us. The other thing that has been, again, I keep it handy for me because it really speaks to the heart of the child. And I think what I learned in the classroom, that oftentimes we try to separate a child's head from their heart. And what makes headway in the head doesn't always resonate in the heart. And I think holistically, social and emotional learning skills effectively delivered really transfer that bridge. Lion's Quest objective, again, is for us to just be better at what we do as a corporation, as a foundation. Social and emotional competencies. Again, this list is not new for a lot of you, but I think it's good to review what we're really talking about here. The first thing we talk about in our teacher training workshops is what are we trying to transfer? What are those concepts and ideas that we want children to look at more seriously, more carefully, and to put into play in their daily lives? And I won't read this list, you can read it yourself. But again, as mentioned earlier, 60%, I think, in one of our surveys, kids make good, healthy choices. So most kids are making good choices about important decisions in their life. How many of you had exposure in your experience in education and really discussing any of these? And what did it mean for you? And what was the implication? And what happened at home, etc. Exciting news about the work that CASEL does, called the Collaborative, I thought I had it overhead, but I put it on the slide. The Collaborative for Academic and Social and Emotional Learning. Go online if you get a chance and look at some of the exciting work they're doing. They're finding good, effective social and emotional learning is not only a tool of prevention, it helps kids succeed academically. And the research is proving that. And so we're doing a lot more in cooperation with the Clinton Global Initiative. We're working with the NOVO Foundation and the Getty and the Gates folks at taking a larger look. Currently, we're looking at the largest, this is Lions Quest, the largest school system in the United States, the New York City school system, with 1 million students. Can you imagine your district having 1 million students? That's just mind-boggling. But they've gotten their arms around this concept. We don't want to keep reinventing the wheel every time an issue comes up each month. We want to be about building a whole child, and it really does consist of these kind of items. This is the quote from Daniel Goleman, and I hope it is. Is it? Yeah. Can't quite see. Oh, there it is. Right there. Thank you. Worth reading. Young people who are socially and emotionally intelligent are happier, fulfill their current and future roles in life more effectively. They become better students, family members, friends, and later better parents and citizens. What else can we ask for at a drug prevention conference? And again, I think it's putting our money where our mouth is as an association, but more importantly, as really as a society, and that we're not battered about by the next issue that comes down the pike in terms of a social issue. The Castle quote, and then I'm going to move quickly here, but why is that up there? Should I go backwards? Bear with me. Okay. What am I looking at there? Academic. No, okay, positive results. Let me back up one then. This is the SEL and academic improvement statement. A strong research base. This is just underscoring what I just indicated. The study by Castle shows preliminary evidence that SEL improves achievement test performance on a meta-analysis of 300 studies, and the SEL instruction showed 11% increase in achievement and test scores. That has school administrators in the United States, and it's very, very active in many other countries, but it has them absolutely jumping for joy because there's such horrendous pressure on them to achieve academic success at the expense of something else. And we found improvements in social and emotional skills, academic achievement, disciplinary actions, less referrals to the principal's office, which gave teachers more time to do the job and focus on the child. School bonding and positive social behavior, which are all critical. I think, again, for me at this conference, what I reflected on today in many of the sessions was to take a look at three things that are going to be absolutely imperative. And I mentioned these earlier, and I think sums up really my experience in 30 years in this field. We really need to be effective. The work that these gentlemen do and other researchers, if we're not going to be effective, if we're not going to show that what we're trying to get out there, what we're trying to share, take the scale, isn't working, let's not do this. Let's stay on the task of effectiveness until we do it right. And I can tell you Lions Quest and Lions Clubs International is committed to doing that. We're involved now in two very, very large research studies that I'm thinking are going to be very exciting. Sustainability. We very, very much feel that Lions Clubs International and our commitment to youth development is going to last another 100 years. We're going to celebrate our first 100 years in 2017. We've been around as an association. That is sustainability. We've committed over $15 million to date, conservative estimate, to helping schools, helping teachers get programs up and running that speak to prevention. And scale. Is this my microphone doing that? Because that's pretty impressive. Oh, no, okay. I thought I had a special phone here. My son's a drummer. We used a U.S. Department, I didn't see anybody here from the U.S. Department of Education, but I was thinking somebody's going to be here. They've been operating on 11 principles of effectiveness for prevention. And, excuse me, we think they make sense. And Lion's Quest, is that for us? Moving away from us or towards us?
Still have 5 minutes.
I don't want to hurt you. But Maurice Elias from Rutgers University, who's one of our primary researchers and one of the giants in the social and emotional learning field, said that Lion's Quest was the one of 2 programs that he looked at that met all 11 of the criteria for prevention. And I'm not going to read them in detail, but I do want you to know that they really make sense. And it's kind of a blinding flash of the obvious. But when you look at putting prevention in place, how many programs are you working with in your community or your country that go about the business of checking off? Is it prevention or is it not? Are you doing the 11 things that are important here? Coming in one at a time. You can look at these, and I think they'll be distributed later, but they go all the way from preparing teachers effectively, doing planning, building a good infrastructure, making sure the school policy is in place, making sure that the administration is supporting you, making sure the family has been invited. That's the hard work of prevention planning in the school. And this is prevention, because many of these kids have not experimented with drugs yet. So we can look at this list and say too daunting, and then build a treatment and rehab centers until we die, or we can begin doing this kind of work with schools. And we're very proud of the fact that we really have succeeded in meeting all 11 of these, because we're committed to it, our foundation and our association. And we do this through Lion's Quest, and some of you are familiar with it. I think it's now 72 countries, and I think it's like 46 languages. Cultural and linguistic translation of language. Cultural, because that's so critical, and we're not in some countries because we've not done that effectively. The thematic units for Lion's Quest are not surprising, and they certainly are the kind of ones that make sense. Entering the teen year, building self-confidence, service learning, giving back. One of the sleepers when it comes to prevention, and we know that from treatment. The best way to get involved in prevention is to have young people serving other people. That's true of adults, that's true of children, that's true of recovering addicts, helping others. Let's get kids involved. And of course, as the world's largest service organization, we'd like to see that happening more and more. The critical prevention elements, again, we'll share with you later, but I think it's important that you look at those and compare them to what you're doing. What does that say? It has all about it. I think I'm going backwards on it. I'm sorry about this. I tried to hurry here. Okay. My assistant must have got cute by trying to pull those up one at a time, because I didn't know she was going to do that. What's that say? Those are the thematic units that I was mentioning. 1 through 7. Entering the teen years, self-confidence, communication, managing emotions, improving peer relationships, strengthening family relationships, making healthy choices, and setting goals. It's absolutely imperative that teachers be trained to know how to do this, or it's unfair to ask them to do. Again, this is a scale that I think it's now a few years old from the U.S., but not surprising to any of you that in a typical prison environment, the number of people who are involved in different kinds of behavior related to drug abuse is extremely high. Traffic fatalities, 50% in the United States. suicides 20 to 35, assault 62%, rapes 53, child abuse 38. So clearly, the cost effectiveness that the Queen spoke about this morning is a no-brainer. I would suggest it's more than $18 to $1, but a minimum, the amount of money that we ought to be spending in prevention makes such great sense. And to get our return on investment, as we keep getting the question, what's the return on investment? Well, it's pretty darn good if you're a stockholder in that company. So we feel pretty strongly that the Lions Clubs International, the board of directors, looked at this kind of information and they said, let's put our money in prevention and let's be about the business of education. This is a chart I just ask you all to think about. Either getting people involved in positive behaviors and not just reducing negative behaviors. We're about more than just the business of stopping something. We're in the business of starting something. Healthy young people making healthy choices and decisions about their life and society in general. So, again, Lions Quest, Lions Clubs International, I'm sure in this part of the world you certainly have met the contact, but in other parts of the world, please be in touch with us, lionsclubsinternational.com, and you can go to Lions Quest, you know, their youth programming, and I have a headache. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mike. So I guess I won't be preaching to the converted if I say that prevention is a great investment in itself, and we've heard in the morning both from the Queen and the Swedish Minister of Elderly and Care that how much Swedish and international colleagues value the prevention initiative. And I would like to finish with the words of another politician who has been involved in the prevention and drug prevention policy many years, being a patron of one of the biggest drug prevention programs. This is the president of Iceland that I mentioned again, and he used to say, if I paraphrase, that if you think constructively about prevention, then you should think about investing your money in the best way. And what is the best way to invest into prevention? It is to base it on the research. This is the way the Icelandic model went through international on many levels and is well known in the world. And I think this is the way that we should really look into working with prevention. And I thank you very much for coming to this session. I think we've got lots of ideas from those presentations we've heard here, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
I would just like to give a thanks to our moderator, Elena Romanova, and I hope you enjoy the session as well as the drum session outside. I will give a special thanks perhaps on to our speakers, Jón Sigfússon, Kjell Adolfsen, and Buscemi.